Hello, my friends. Welcome. This is my kitty. She's part of my welcoming party. I sincerely thank you for joining me for my first art video on YouTube. For this painting, I will be using a sheet of Fabriano watercolor paper. This paper holds water really well and is available at a fairly reasonable price. Here's just a rag that will help control the water during the painting. And these are the 4 brushes that I decided to use. This is a number 10 Escoda brush. This is a number 4 Raphael brush. And these are 2 different number 6s, one from Escoda and one from Silver Black Velvet. The tip of one is a little denser than the other. So I invite you to enjoy a cup of tea or a snack, or better yet, bring out your own art supplies and we can paint together. While this is not a tutorial, as I am not a professional by any means, I will do my best to explain my process along the way, just in case you want to paint along with me. So here I am just doing a quick sketch to set some parameters using a sharpened 4H pencil. I like the 4H pencil because it's dense enough to make a clear mark, but not so much that it leaves too much charcoal on the paper. As I'm wetting this brush, I'm noticing that there are still some colors left over from the last time I used it, but that's quite all right. Right now we're just grabbing some water to drop onto the colors that we want to use today. Doing this will help wake up the pigments in the paint. During this time, I'm also going to clean the palette. I will often reuse the leftover colors on my palette, but these colors don't really have a place in today's painting. The piece that I want to work on today has been inspired by the movie The Phantom of the Opera. Emily Rossum plays Christine Daae so beautifully, and I found the aesthetic of the movie very captivating. So my goal today is not to create an exact copy of anything, but just to use the essence of the film as inspiration and guide. And the scene that I'm taking this painting from is quite passionate and quite fiery. So I'm mixing some very deep reds for the color in the background. And I'm doing 2 separate tones of red so that we can blend them using a wet on wet technique. Once we've mixed the colors of the background, I'm taking my largest brush and simply wetting all the areas on the paper outside of where the sketch is. And once the page is nice and wet, we're just going to drop some colors in. I'm moving from the lighter shade of red up top into a darker shade of red on the bottom. I really love watching colors come to life as they flow and dance together. In this particular scene, Christine Daae is on stage and there is what appears to be flames behind her. So what I'm hoping to do here is just to sort of bring that movement and that fiery energy forward through the way that the paints will interact with each other and blend together. Now that we have the background down, it needs time to dry. So during this time, we can start blending some colors for her skin tone. We already had that red down from the background, and what we're doing now is just adding some yellow and a bit of yellow ochre with plenty of water. The first layer will just be a very light wash. I just want to place some color down and to get the general outline of where her face will be. And once this first layer dries, we will build on it afterwards. It's good to keep in mind that watercolor is one of those mediums that tend to dry lighter than it looks while it's wet. So right now it looks like there's a lot of color in her skin, but once the paint dries, you will see that this is actually a very, very light wash of color. Because the focus of this painting today will be on her face, we don't really need to stress over the details elsewhere. Here, we're just blocking the area where her dress is with a neutral shade. My goal for myself today is to loosen up while capturing an essence. One of the things that I've learned is that our eyes tend to get drawn towards details. So if we add too many details throughout the painting, it can become overwhelming. This is why I'm keeping everything else outside of her face very simplified. However, if you are someone who enjoys precision work and getting into the detail of things, I warmly invite you to give it your all. After all, this is your world, your time, and your art. Now that the first layer of her face has dried, we can go in with a second layer, being careful to leave some highlights on the left side where the light is shining in. Emily Rossum's hair in this movie was very thick, very lush, and so I'm doing my best to hopefully show some of that texture here. layer on her face, adding more detailed shadows for her forehead and her nose, while making sure to leave room for her eyes. Right by her jawline and the area of her neck, right underneath her jaw, the shadow will be much darker. So we will be using a thicker layer of the same color here. It will blend nicely with the shadows on her face because the paint there is still wet, while it's a little bit, the edges are a little sharper at her neck because the paint there has dried already. And we're making sure to leave parts of her neck where the light will be shining through much lighter. And doing this will help add some depth and dimensions into your painting. We're coming back in with the red color to add some details to the very large rose that she has in her hair. And you can see I'm not fussing over details, but I'm just breaking up into the areas where there might be some shadow in the rose, just to kind of give the idea of the flower and its petals. And using the very same red, we're going to go in and start putting the colors onto her lips. She happens to be wearing a very red lipstick in this scene, but one of the reasons why it's good to use the same colors throughout the painting is because it will add a level of cohesiveness to the painting while helping the eye get drawn to different areas of the piece. And here I'm careful to leave some whites for the highlights on her bottom lip and to add a bit of darker color on the top lip, which will be more in shadow. And now this area is dried, we can go in and start putting in the details of her eyes. For her eyes, I just use a mix of the colors that I was used for her hair, as well as the colors that were used on her dress. So while we have most of the foundation down, the rest of the time we will just kind of go in and add some shading where we need, maybe a little pop of color here and there, kind of just moving along as we go and seeing maybe what areas we want accentuated to stand out a little bit more. And using the same red, I've gone in and added a very light layer of red on her cheeks, and here I'm trying to add a little more detail into her hair. adding a little bit of that blush color onto her shoulders just to draw the eye down a little bit, and adding a little more shadow and detail around her throat area. In this scene, her brassiere is very lacy. It has a lot of details, but again, my focus is to keep the attention on her face and not to trouble with too much detail around it. So here we're just um, getting the essence of the indication of fabric and some of the direction that the fabric is going in and some of the shadows from the fabric. And finishing up the face with just a touch more shadow to bring a little more expression in. I definitely used a little more water than I would have liked right there by the bridge of her nose. But it was good to add a little more dimension and depth to her forehead and her cheekbones. In the reference photo that I used, she had some kind of design in that area of her dress, and while I couldn't quite figure out what the design was, I did think that it would serve the painting to add a little bit of red down there just to sort of bring all the colors in together. This is where I stopped the piece that day. And while there are quite a few areas where I would love to improve and there are plenty of lessons learned, overall I had a great time making this painting and hope that you've enjoyed our little art hang together as well. Later that day, I went back in and softened some of the shadows and added some more details to her nose as well as her ear. And this is the final result. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. If you've made it all the way to the end, it would give me so much joy if you were to like this video. And if you'd like to hang again, please subscribe to my channel. I'm sending you all so much love. May you have a blessed day. Sincerely, Earth Rose Arts.